Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Amy Carr Hilton and I know firsthand the hardships of figuring out how to recover from chronic pain and other chronic symptoms on our own. So I'm inviting you here to explore our pain mastery together because it is you who has the greatest power to influence your own pain healing. And I really want to share this experience with you. All right, so what are the phases, the 3 phases? We are going to bring the 4 elements of care into phase 1, context awareness. Phase 2, brain retraining. And phase 3, gradual reintroduction of our triggers. So when I was exploring my own healing and trying to understand what worked, why it worked, and how it could be replicated over and over and over in other chronic pain sufferers, I had a lot of trial and error. I was using my knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and neurology to be sure. But what really helped me figure out what worked was my previous experience as a yoga practitioner, a yoga therapist, and as a personal trainer. So these are the experiences in life that taught me how to be curious about my life and my role, the parts I play in different relationships, to be present with my experience in the moment without judging or putting labels on it, to just be curious about what's happening and what I'm feeling, to be willing to be wrong sometimes, and yet keep trying and trust that my body is actually meant to heal. If I could just create the best possible container or environment for that to happen. So through all of this self-experimentation, I developed my 3-phase method. This is the process that worked for me, and it's worked for hundreds of my clients. So ideally, you will master the first phase and then move on to phase 2 and 3. But I want to give you a taste of what each phase looks like here in this mini workshop. And if you feel like you can roll with it on your own, then that's fantastic. But if you feel like you need help, then I can support you in some of my other programs. So there are many ways to approach each of the 3 phases. So these three practices that I'm sharing with you as examples are not the only way. They're just the examples I chose to use to show you how the elements of care show up in each phase and how they must show up in each phase. So the first thing we need to do, the first phase, is to really get to know our context for feeling pain, to understand what the factors are in our lives that affect our balance of danger and safety. So in phase 1, we dive deep into discovering the factors that creates our pain experience. And this is unique to us. To really understand our context, we need to become better at being with our emotions. Our feelings, how we feel about something, this is a mental construct. It's created in our mind. Emotions are different. Emotions are our limbic system responding automatically to our experience. Now, this does not happen in our mind. It happens in our body. And this is the key to understanding our pain context. So you'll get to practice this in the guided meditation in the next lesson to see how care elements are used in phase 1 of our healing. And once we understand our pain context, we then need to minimize it. So phase 2 is all about minimizing our context through brain retraining. So we need to teach our brain to respond to our life context through new neural pathways of safety. But that means first, the old danger neural pathways need to go dormant. So with brain retraining, we teach our brain that we are perfectly safe using those top-down and bottom-up techniques to help our brain make fewer mistakes when it's using predictive processing to understand if we're in danger or not, to make sense of our circumstances. So we'll use our conscious thought, intellectual understanding, and speech to tell our brain we're safe. And we'll reinforce that through soothing stimulation in the body. So you'll get to experience how care ties in with this in the self-loving touch nervous system modulating practice after the emotional awareness meditation. And then finally, once we've started minimizing our pain context by teaching our brain our actual reality of safety, we start introducing more to our nervous system. So this is where we start to reintroduce more activity and more triggers. It's not just activity, it's also about introducing all those factors that you found increase your pain context. So these might be people, places, thoughts, beliefs, objects, activities, things happening in the body, anything picked up by the five senses. Weather is often a big one, or a time of year people often mention. So we do this slowly to give our brain a chance to catch on to our safety before it freaks out and alerts us to danger that actually doesn't exist. So now, if you're like me, you've probably been burned a few times when trying to increase exposure to triggers. My trial and error was full of me burning myself. So you might have some hesitation, some worry. You might have some "what if this makes me worse" kind of thoughts. When we're stuck in this pain, fear, avoidance cycle, the best place to start with exposure is to use visualization of exposure to the trigger before actually exposing ourselves to it. So this works as though we're actually exposing our brain to the trigger because our brain sees what we visualize or what we imagine as actually real. So if you're already imagining exposing yourself to a trigger is going to cause you pain, what do you think the brain is going to predict and create in your experience? Pain. Now, if we go into exposing with the top-down knowledge that this is just an exercise for our brain, our body is not under any extra stress at all, then we can reassure our safety easier. So you'll get to experience an example of the elements of care with increasing exposure in a guided visualization after the self-loving touch practice. So you can go on now and move on to the next 3 lessons to experience these 3 phases.